Actually, I am going to start working on Oracle Math.
Hey, if you got Brookles Math, don't worry about it. Get on that.
Yeah, it's
I've been there. I understand. It's okay.
We're go.
Ready for
I'll take a picture ready after
I would
that.
recommend standing slightly in front of the light so we can see who you are and you're not this shadow lurking in
Well,
front of your
it's,
stuff.
the camera setup decided on where you were.
Yeah, I'm centered on the camera right now.
I understand.
I can't see your face, but okay.
Don't worry.
That's okay. You don't need to see my face. I'm Batman
fix all this in
or something.
Okay.
We can fix all this in editing. Go.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so yeah, this is a presentation that I gave in English class last spring as kind of like a surprise thing because we had to do an individual presentation on some topic that we would like. And so I decided to pick the Bible in games. And since some people actually ended up liking it and such, I thought that it would be interesting to do it again and actually get it recorded so that I can put it on my website and keep it for prosperity's sake. So the idea here is to look at whether or not Christian theology, or in that case really any theology, can succeed in video games. To start off, I'll cover what this is not about. It's not about propaganda. It's not about condemning people and telling everybody here that you're going to hell. And I'm not here to preach. I didn't bring, like a physical Bible with me or anything. Basically, I'm not here to be this guy and wave the finger at you. If you want that discussion, you can meet me after this or something and we can have that discussion. But I'm not going to go over it right now. Okay, so then what is this about? Well, it's about removing the stigma because for whatever reason, there's this belief that, Christianity or religion in general doesn't belong in games. And that's going to be done by asking a few questions about why the stigma might be there. And I'll also do it by looking at past successes and past failures, like the Holy Bible and Game Boy Advance. Do that by looking at games, movies, books, and so forth, because they're all media. And then I'll touch a little bit on what I would like to do personally, and about how, what this could do for the industry and the medium and that type of thing. Okay, so no religion allowed. This is about the stigma. That apparently is the rule in the industry. No religion, don't touch it. Why? Is it because it's offensive? I don't really believe that because we're well known for controversy. Ripping spines out of people's mouths doesn't bother us. Having sex scenes in games doesn't bother us. Playing as an undercover CIA agent who's running through an airport and shooting everybody down doesn't bother us. Well, maybe that one does bother us a little bit, but, and even if it does, then we can, borrow some, just borrow the traits and everything and not go explicit. I don't know. Maybe people believe that it limits the demographic. I personally don't think so. I'll touch because of, VeggieTales. Lots of people love VeggieTales. I'll touch a bit more on that later though. Maybe it's because it's boring, but, we all like our war games, and the entire Old Testament is about war pretty much, and the entire Bible is about the conflict of good versus evil, and I don't really see how you can get how, the epic conflict between good and evil can really be boring, especially since it shows up in probably 90% of every game ever, except maybe Madden. The Sims has it though. All right, so we'll look at what's been done. Early attempts in the game industry. Bible Adventures and Super 3D Noah's Ark. No wonder we have a bad reputation. Okay, so all of the early attempts of games were pretty much rip-offs. Blatant rip-offs. Bible Adventures was Super Mario Brothers 2. They took the exact code, changed the sprites, and released it on a hacked cartridge that had to somehow bypass security, and it wasn't licensed, so it couldn't be sold in stores. Super 3D Noah's Ark was Wolfenstein 3D. And they never exactly figured out how to bypass the security, so you actually had to do the Sonic and Knuckles thing and plug another cartridge into this one in order for it to get past console security. No wonder nobody really cared for this.
The NES one was fun though.
Well, it was Super it was Wolfenstein 3D, so I guess it couldn't be too bad. But yeah, so they didn't sell very well. I wonder why. There are development groups out there. There's the Christian Game Developers Foundation that has their own version of TDC. They meet every year. There's also the Association of Christian Entertainment. They also meet every year and discuss stuff like this in theory. And then there have been some recent releases. There was the MMO game, Left Behind Eternal Forces, that actually upon its release received more backlash from Christians because of violence than it did from game reviewers and such. It actually scored in like the 70 range, I think, and then upon patches and within about a year or two, they actually had it up to where reviewers were scoring it in the 80% range and saying that it actually wasn't too bad. And it had some moderate sales. I think they actually turned a profit on that. I think they actually ended up getting about 1 million copies out. And then Guitar Praise is Guitar Hero with Christian music for the computer. So it's sold decently well and, must be fun because it's Guitar Hero. Okay, so now to take a look at our cousins. What are books, TVs, movies? What have they done? Because obviously, if it's not successful in games, then it can't be successful anywhere else, right? Well, that's wrong. They've done quite well. And apparently I'm flicking the mouse too hard and it's moving backwards. Okay, so there are 2 ways that I see that we can do this. You can do it the subtle way, which is what C.S. Lewis and Tolkien did. Chronicles of Narnia and Lord of the Rings are highly, highly, highly based off of the Bible and content therein. And they've been successful, and tons of people besides just Christians and such love the Lord of the Rings and have enjoyed Chronicles of Narnia and that type of stuff. There's also, you can do it the explicit way. Prince of Egypt, Passion of the Christ. Passion of the Christ is obviously going to the most explicit way, where you're pretty much not catering to anybody, not going to get any audience besides Christians, more likely than not. Prince of Egypt, a lot of people enjoyed. Why did a lot of people enjoy it, though? Because it was a good animated movie directed by Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg, in both of these cases, or in all of these cases shown, the idea was, hey, let's write a really good fantasy book, or hey, let's make a really good movie. And then in the process of doing that, they took everything that they knew about writing books or about making movies or TV shows, or, cartoon shows in the case of VeggieTales, what have you, and then just decided as their content, as their theme, they would draw from the Bible. They would draw from this content and they would inject that stuff into it. They didn't go the opposite way, which is what things like Bible Adventures or the Bible game, which was just a trivia game, did, where they're just like, hey, let's, put the Bible on a disc and have it be played on the GameCube. It doesn't really sell that well because it's not really that fun, because it's not a game. It's just kind of a digital book with really, really bad looking assets. So they were successful because they were just good movies and such. And I think that we could easily do the same thing. So yeah, talking about us. Action and implementation, is what has to be done. Do it the safe way, or do it the dynamic or more explicit way. It doesn't really matter. The safe way, we could just do it the Tolkien style, or the Lewis style, just make some fantasy world and that type of thing, and draw all of the principles and all of the ideas from the Bible and all of that. There have been lots of analysis that's gone on over the Lord of the Rings, drawing parallels to characters in the Lord of the Rings and characters in the Bible and such. And, Gandalf was a wizard. He kind of knew everything. He had a moment whenever he died. He came back, rose again, was more powerful, very much a parallel to Christ, dying and then rising again. And then you can obviously do it the more explicit way, where if you wanted to actually make a game where you played as David and you killed Goliath. I think it'd be kind of cool. He beheaded him. There would be blood and violence and that type of stuff, and that makes everybody happy, right? I kind of wish that we could have gotten this from Dante's Inferno. I'm afraid we're not going to get this from Dante's Inferno. That's still to be decided in February, but I'm not keeping my hopes up or going to hold breath or anything like that. They pretty much killed it. So yeah, as I mentioned, Spielberg did it. You know, he said, hey, I want to make a good movie. Hey, why don't I make that good movie about Moses and the Israelites leaving Egypt? Sure, why not? And like I said, I'm not really asking for a sermon. You don't have to go into your games and everything and then have some character turn towards the screen and say, you are a sinner. You are going to hell. Yes, you, right there, Justin. You're going to hell. Unless you repent now. If you do not repent, then this game will not continue. Yeah, you don't have to do that because it's not really gonna be that fun of a game. I would kind of be turned off by that because I'd be like, what the crap are they doing here? I thought I was playing Mario. Why is Mario asking me to repent? So yeah, I mean, saying God or Jesus Christ won't hurt. They're said out of context probably, 4 dozen times a day. So, why would it be bad to say in context? I'm not looking at anybody. And I personally think that it would create a much deeper and more compelling experiences because then you would get another layer there. You might be able to impact people a little more than normal because there's actually going to be some meaning and something worthwhile in the game. There's a reason why the Chronicles of Narnia and the Lord of the Rings have been so successful. And there's a reason why people keep making movies about Moses and the Ten Commandments and his struggles in Egypt and getting the Israelites out of Egypt and such. And it's because they mean something to people. And not just people who have read the Bible and said, hey, I read about that, It's not just them, they mean something to more people than that. And yeah, it would probably help our image a little bit, maybe we won't have a whole bunch of sensationalists going after, video games. I mean, okay, so we're still gonna have sensationalists going after video games and saying, you're all trying to kill people. But what if there was a game out there, who actually tried to maybe teach us some morals or some principles that might be a little worthwhile instead of just being like, hey, I'll give you 10 extra points if you can rip his spinal cord out. Just my theory. So yeah, I'll just kind of wrap it up. My kind of goals here, destroying the stigma, just getting rid of this idea that Christian games or having religion in games or anything like that is a horrible idea and it's going to immediately kill the product because nobody's going to like it. I mean, other entertainment media have done it. Music, books, TV, movies, art, everything else that's ever existed. And I think this would be a good maturing point if we like to borrow from movies enough as it is anyway. Why don't we borrow this a little bit from this also? And like I said, some are trying it. Guitar Praise and Left Behind, Eternal Forces actually turned a profit. So they're kind of figuring it out, I think. Yeah, I believe that it would create a much stronger emotion line in games because it would actually be a bit more meaningful. It would have something a little bit deeper there and maybe get people to think a little bit more about what's going on the screen and, make a new serious game instead of serious game meaning, save the planet or don't kill the puppies or something. I don't know. So it's kind of the